Much of my memories of elementary school, specifically the first few years of school, have been lost to history in the haze of getting older. But there are some memories that remain. The very first field day we had, which was in the gymnasium at South Yarmouth Elementary, playing the Around the World math game that I spoke about in the podcast previously, having some jerk kid stab me in the finger with a graphite pencil to where I still have a little dot on my finger where the graphite is lodged, or having my world crushed when Apollo Creed was killed in Rocky IV, but then having my world revived when I realized that it was just an actor in a movie and they weren't real. One such memory that stuck with me, kind of in an earworm / hazy sort of way, were these drawing books. For years, they would kind of be in my head, and it's based on a funny little song that I made up. And in our library in elementary school, there were these series of books by a man named Lee J Ames, whose name I didn't remember until recently, doing research for what would be this segment on the podcast. But I decided to go way back in the day to talk about him. Some of you might remember his books. He had a series, the Draw 50 series. So the original book that I remember was just called Draw, Draw, Draw. And it had kind of half-done sketches on the front cover. That original Draw, Draw, Draw book was from 1962. So I was in school. I started in 1983. So that book was already old when it was in the library when I saw it. But the book would show you how to draw basic things, human faces, trees, anything like that. And me as a kid, I wanted to be able to draw, to sketch. I never really had that ability. My drawing skill is very minimal. But Lee J Ames's books made it seem easy to do it because he would go step by step. But the Draw 50 series was the one that really stuck out for me. That's what he's known for. So there's a book, Draw 50 Animals. There's a book, Draw 50 Boats, Ships, Trucks, and Trains. And so those three books were side by side on the shelves in the library at South Yarmouth Elementary. And it became almost like a song. Draw, 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 draw 50 animals, draw 50 boats, ships, trucks, and trains. Now, granted, I was a 7-year-old kid, so this is not exactly super complex poetry, but the song of those three book titles, I kid you not, has been an earworm in my head for the last almost 40 years. It's amazing what childhood memories get kind of imprinted on your brain, where something like the title of 3 Lee J Ames drawing books is stuck with me. There are more than 20 of these Draw 50 books by Lee J Ames, and they've sold more than 2 million copies. And I'm sure generations of young artists have gotten some use out of them, because the Draw 50 Animals books, or the trains and trucks and such, it gives you kind of a template on how to draw things so they look at least relatively real. Lee J Ames got his start as an artist in residence for Doubleday Publishing, a designer, an advertising artist, totally into graphics. While he was at Doubleday, his editor suggested that he write a book, and Lee J Ames said that he wasn't much of a writer, but he could basically draw a book and show you how to draw at least similar to how he does. The first book, Draw, 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 which I mentioned, that was a modest success, but it was 12 years until Draw 50 Animals came out in 1974. And these books were typically without text. I guess you'd have to look. I mean, I'm sure you could find words. But when it comes to doing something like drawing a tiger's head, you don't really need description. You just need step-by-step instructions. Especially when you're children in elementary school, and some of you probably can't read, it's easier to just look at the pictures and imitate them. Now, I didn't become a great artist due to these Draw 50 series books, but that's not a slight on Lee J Ames. It's just drawing was never my thing. I wonder if any of you out there ever heard of these books. They're still for sale on Amazon, so you could go and find them and try to hone your craft. There's an interview with Lee J Ames on his website, so his website no longer exists. What you have to do is go to archive.org, and at the top of the page is the Wayback Machine. What you do is you can put in a web address, even one that doesn't exist anymore, and if it was snapshotted at any point in its existence, you can go back and click on the website. So I went to Lee J Ames's website back in 2005 to see an interview with him. His site, or at least the site that brings you to there, is epcom.com/draw50/Lee Ames. So that's a lot to do if you want to see a 20-year-old website of books that you might not remember. If you're my age or a little bit older, if you see the covers of these Draw 50 series, they probably will bring you back to where it's something that you don't remember, but it'll be one of those flashbacks that'll get you. Like I said, I only remember the Draw book and the first two, the Draw 50 Animals and the Boats, Ships, Trucks, and Trains, but there are 26 total. They include athletes, aliens, dogs, famous faces. These are all the books. And it is really simple as far as how to do it. It's typically 4 or 5 layered sketches where there's an ink, like a red ink, and it'll start with the darker red ink with what to do in that sketch. And then in the second one, the previous stuff you've done is now a lighter color, and it's got the darker color for what to add to it. You'd have to see it. I'm trying to describe it, and it's not going to make sense. But for me, remembering it as a kid, it does make sense. If you go to Amazon or if you go to thriftbooks.com, you can find all of these. They get reprinted, so the covers are going to be more modern. I don't know if you could find originals from 50 years ago. They'd probably be way more expensive than you'd want to spend on a drawing book that you might use once or twice and then stick it on a shelf. Lee J Ames was over 40 years old when that Draw book came out, and he was in his early 50s when he started the Draw 50 series. So that's one of those things where it's never too late to be a success or to find your way, which is not a route I expected to take when talking about these books, but the fact that he was in his early 50s and started a series of successful books, that's kind of gives hope to everyone out there. He died in 2011 at the age of 90. So he lived a long, successful life, and his books, I know they influenced generations of artists, because I haven't been in an elementary school library recently, but I'm pretty sure they probably have those books even in there still. Maybe you can tell me if you are a elementary school librarian or a librarian in general, if you have the Lee J Ames series of drawing books. And if you're one of those that used the books or remember the books, did they help you become a better artist? For me, I enjoyed trying to draw, but I was never good enough, so I would just get frustrated, and then I became a writer instead. But that's a look way, way back in the day at the Lee J Ames series of drawing books that became an earworm in my head because of my little song about the first 3 titles. Like I said, it's amazing what sticks in your mind from when you were a child.